गुड इवनिंग, नमस्ते, आदाब। मैं हूं आपका दोस्त आदित्य त्रिपाठी, फिर से आपके साथ एक इंटरेस्टिंग वेबिनार लेते आते हुए। इस बार एक्सिस मल्टी कैप फंड के 3 साल हो चुके हैं और इसी सेलिब्रेशन में आज हमारे साथ हमारे 2 गेस्ट हैं। वेलकम सर, वेलकम मैम। So Hitesh sir is the fund manager for Axis Multicap Fund. He's been in the equity space for more than 14 years of this. We also have Shikha with us, who has been with us on the panel long back in terms of this. She is the AVP for products and she's been in the industry of BFSI for more than 10.5 years. Welcome you guys.
Thank
you. So Shikha, my very first question to you is, what is Axis Multicap Fund?
Okay, Aditya, before I answer that, what is Axis Multicap Fund? Let me just run you through what is Multicap Fund first. So basically, if you look at market space, we have small cap, mid cap, large cap, all of them. At a different point in time in market, each of them perform well. So let's say last 2 years have been very good for mid and small cap, but 2022 large cap did well. So for investors who, because it's for a like a normal guy, it's difficult to understand that which market cap will do well from here. So for that kind of structures, there is a category called multi-cap category, wherein a fund manager invests 25% in large cap, 25% in mid cap, and 25% in small cap, and remaining 25% on fund manager's discretion. So Axis Multicap falls under that category, wherein we choose the best idea which is available in the market, irrespective of what segment it is or what market cap it is, because you can have exposure to all three of them. Now, how do we manage this fund, or how do we look at this fund is, each company goes through a phase, or rather in each phase there are companies at all point in time. One is a very niche phase, a startup phase, which we call as emerging opportunities, wherein you have companies which are new, which are not yet established, but are trying to establish and market themselves. They are high potential companies, but at the same time comes with a higher risk. Then companies which are challengers, which are in growth phase, which are mid-cap companies, companies which are slightly have some track record right now, have more flexibility because they have developed some market cap, they have strengthened to spend in the marketing and take volatility of the markets and business cycle into it, but yet have not reached the stability of a large cap one. So those are the one which we focus on. We call them challengers because they have potential, and rather in our portfolio we have companies and examples like that which were mid cap and later on turned into a large cap one. And then you have large cap, of course, which are more stable in the market and which have more established model. But at the same time, they have less flexibility and lesser risk, lesser return potential than maybe, let's say, mid and small cap somewhere. So all three mixed together, what we look at is invest and hold during the entire cycle. So if a company is in, let's say, mid cap, we can hold it till it becomes large cap, and we don't have to move it out because the cap is changed. So this is the idea of having Axis Multicap Fund.
So, Hitesh, I've been seeing there are a lot of weakness in the market after elections. Can you actually give me a market understanding of what exactly we are looking at?
Yeah. So I think post elections we have seen a cyclical slowdown. If you read the newspapers, you see GDP data has come below estimates. We've seen all the high frequency indicators like auto sales, power demand coming off. I think it's a cyclical slowdown. We all think it's a cyclical slowdown. And there is no one event which has led to this. This is multiple of factors. We had a high base last year. In the first half of the year, government spending was slightly on the muted side. So I think because there is a host of factors and not one single factor here, will take some time to sort of get out of it. On the other hand, we have seen the market also sort of crowding into sectors like IT, pharma, travel, etc., where we are seeing earnings visibility and people getting out of places like FMCG, etc., where due to the market slowdown, GDP slowdown, urban consumption, which we all hear across board, that the revenue growths are not coming through. Also, we have seen inflation on slight coming back in certain raw materials, which will impact margins for certain sectors. So going ahead, I think while the market continues to be in a seesaw mode, we will see earnings momentum in certain sectors. We will see cyclical slowdown maybe coming off in 6 to 9 months, and maybe in the second half of the next year, sectors like banks, autos, FMCG, where there's a lot of value because the stocks have corrected a lot, may be looked as a much more promising sector. But as of now, we think markets will continue to be in a seesaw mode. Also, because the global markets are not very supportive. If you look at US yields, post the Fed decision, we've seen yields also go up, and Fed rate cuts are much more muted. Only 2 rate cuts maybe for next year. So I think a lot depends on global markets as well, right? Because we are as a market linked to global markets.
So you said that we are quite in terms of the seesaw mode in terms of this. So will in this case, India would also be as part of the geopolitical instability, or would also face consequences regarding to it?
Yeah, I think we are linked to global markets, and what happens in US, in Europe will impact us. There is a regime change in US, and we have yet to see what policies they come out with and what's the impact of their government policies on the broader macro in US and in turn the global macro. As I said, yields have started going up because the Fed, US Fed decided not to cut rates aggressively in the coming year. I think we have to wait and watch as to what's the impact. We are not delineated from the rest of the market. India is holding up actually reasonably well. If you, for an example, look at Brazil, the market has been completely rogered last week or so. The currency has devalued a lot. We are slightly better off as of now, but we have to wait and watch.
So connecting to the global markets, eventually, Donald Trump has been elected as a president in the US. So what are your thoughts? How would the tariff dumpings in the EV market would look like?
I think, see, the initial signs are they are much more focused on China, much more focused on nearby countries like Mexico and Canada, where a lot of manufacturing base is there. For us, it is mostly services, exports, and certain bit of manufacturing to US. If we go back, let's say 5-6 years in the previous Trump regime, we had a lot of US focus on H-1B visas for IT workers who go to US to work. I think that slowed down a bit, but during that time, IT companies based out of India have invested a lot in US. They have built up a lot of local talent, so the dependence on visa is not as much as it was 5-6 years back. So we are better off from an IT perspective, I think. But for other sectors, we have to wait and watch how the tariffs play out. I think from an India perspective, we are slightly down the ladder in terms of focus. I think focus will be in China, on Mexico, Canada, and maybe some other nations.
So I was reading around in much of the newspapers where in the current market conditions, whether it's globally or in the Indian market, a multi-cap seemed to be a very relevant option in terms of investment, but there was no brief ideology of it. So if you can just help me out.
So I think large part of it Hitesh has covered, and just to add, at this time, India is said to be a highly valued country, right? And we can see that the valuations are really high in mid and small cap. But we have been talking about this quite some time now, that the valuations are very high and markets can correct, but we have seen a bit of correction and then again a bit of volatility in market. So what we believe, and just to add to what Hitesh said, is market is going to be a little stock specific right now, and opportunities can be there in all the pockets. So what one has to look at, whether that company is doing well, whether the earnings are coming there, because it's going to be more earning focused now. Even so, if valuations are justifying your earnings and the company is able to deliver, so either it's a mid cap, small cap, it doesn't matter. So that's how a multi-cap plays a very good role, because you have exposure to all three of them, and you get the best in all the ideas. So that's how I will position the multi-cap right now. You don't have to worry about whether the mid-cap is doing well. You don't have to worry about large cap is doing well or not, or which is expected to do well. Rather, just invest your money where you have exposure across, and it's more about having a better ideas, the best companies in your portfolios, rather than worrying about how much market cap or which fund you should invest in. Either you go to large cap or some other segments.
So Hitesh, so speaking from the investor side of point of view, I've been investing into multi-cap. And eventually I've been figuring out that multi-cap has been performing significantly well. So what are actual strategies that you guys have been following in terms of this outperformance? What is the logic behind it?
I think it's mostly a bottom-up approach, right? As Shikha highlighted, we are focused on stock-specific returns and their outlook. I think we are much more a bottom-up approach on our multi-cap fund, and we have a lot of emphasis on earnings momentum and cash flows. And I think from a sector perspective, we continue to be very agile. We continue to search within different sectors, even newer sectors, to be sort of looking at newer stocks, newer ideas, and ideation has been our key sort of strength over the last 3 years. If you look at the portfolio as well, there are a lot of new sectors which have come up in India. For example, hospitals as a sector in the listed space has been a relatively recent phenomenon. Office leasing as an industry has come up. So these are some of the sort of sectors we keep close watch on. We have there in our portfolio. And also in terms of processes, I think, as I said, it's a bottom-up approach. We look at individual companies' earnings momentum and cash flows. We look at the industry where there is significant TAM to grow. We look at management quality and the balance sheet of the companies to ensure that, especially in the mid and the small size, they have the wherewithal to sort of survive through cyclical slowdowns such as these, right? So, yeah, we that's our sort of unique strategy there.
So there is a question from one of my investor eventually on YouTube, and that is, this is Dishant, and this is for you, sir. It's how do macroeconomic factors such as interest rate, inflation, global economic trend influence your investment?
I think everything, as I said, we are bottom up, but the macroeconomic factors do impact the growth outlook of various companies. We try to invest in companies which have a long runway of growth. There may be short hiccups in between, but I think from a longer term perspective, we do look at companies which have a very good TAM and they have the right ability to grow. Especially this is required in mid and small caps because as mid and small caps, their balance sheet size is small. Of the recent past, I think the attractiveness has improved because of mid and small caps have better access to financial markets, so their balance sheets continue to be strong and they're able to attract better talent. People are migrating from large companies to mid and small size companies to build their careers. So I think that also helps a lot of companies to grow on a sustainable basis. In terms of macro factors, that obviously flows down to their own growth prospects in the short term and also valuations, etc. So I think that does play a factor, but there are other factors which are company micro factors versus macro factors, which sort of we have to keep in balance while making an investment decision.
So Shekha, what is the current asset allocation in terms of multi-cap? And how do you define it particularly? Like how do you?
Okay, since it's a flexible approach, like I said, 25% in each of them is compulsory and rest is a fund manager's choice. So at this point, if I talk about the last month end, we were around 40 to 42% somewhere in the large cap and 25-26% in mid cap and similar in the small cap. So that's the ratio we have been maintaining. I think outlook wise, Hitesh can add that where he's looking more from market cap perspective, but that's on the current one.
So coming back to you, how this is again an investor that has asked you, sir, how has Axis Multicap Fund performed across market cycles? If both of you can just give me a pointer on it.
We just finished, I think 3 years, right, Shikha? And 3 years is a very short time to sort of judge across market cycles. But I think Shikha will add to my question. But we are doing reasonably well. Even during initial phases, we were sort of doing reasonably well, but our performance has sort of picked up of late in past. Even if you look at last couple of months where markets have not been very supportive, we have been outperforming the benchmark reasonably well. I think Shikha can add to that.
Yes, if you look at, I think performance as on yesterday, if you look at, I think 1 year performance is somewhere around 37% and 3 years performance is somewhere around 23%. So in both cases, we are able to beat benchmark, but not just to highlight the recent performance, but to give you a median performance of a 3 years. So rolling returns, which is a concept. So if I look at like 1 year rolling returns since inception of the fund has given a median return of somewhere around 34%. So this gives you an idea that because I'm taking 1 year here because fund has just completed 3 years, but if you are holding this period fund for a 1 year at least, the median return which an investor would have made is 34%. So just to give that, the fund has a strong fundamentals to it. The stock selections, the sector selections went right through it, and has the potential and the ability to sustain the different market phases. And of course, you can look at Hitesh earlier different funds return for a longer term, to see how he's performed in he's managing different funds, growth opportunities is there. Nitin is also managing multiple funds, and manufacturing is there. I think mid cap also his name is there. So you can look at different funds, how they have performed of the fund managers. But I think for this one, 3 years have been wonderful. It has seen some up cycles, down cycles because of quality not performing a bit in market. But overall, if an investor would have stayed for 3 years, I think the fund is beating the benchmark there.
So how do you suggest, as in this question is to both of you, how do you suggest if I wanted to invest in Axis Multicap, particularly, what should I look at in terms of my age category? How should I look into invest into SIPs or invest into lump sums?
So I think it's not age. I will say. See, you're young, right? Yeah. So for you, equity is a go-to class for you. But of course, what are you looking? Are you looking for your next year trip? Are you looking for your wealth creation? If you're looking for a wealth creation where you don't want to look back or be worried about, either certain themes are working in market or what market cap is working in market or not, just put your money in multi-cap. That's how this fund has been structured, because it's quite diversified. You can take exposure to all sectors. You have exposure to all market cap there. So I think if you're looking from a 3-year plus prospect, which I say for a lot of equity funds, because they are, you say the high risk because of market is very volatile, it should not come for a very short period of time in any of the equity funds. So multi-cap applies the same. Come for a 3 years view or a wealth creation view. I think that fund suits very well for all the investors with that vision.
So the question is open to you eventually. There's a friend of mine who has been investing into small cap, mid cap and large cap differently.
Yeah.
Should I actually suggest a person to invest directly into multi-cap, or does we have a different ideology towards it?
Yeah, multi-cap surely does have a different ideology, right? You get all the 3 flavors at Correct. One place. Plus, you're able to manage growth and risk or growth or volatility much better in a multi-cap. So a multi-cap will give you that growth which one expects from a small or a mid-cap stocks. Also, you have that balancing effect of large cap stocks of relatively low volatility, right? And slightly lower returns, but much more stability from a large cap perspective. So, multi-cap does well in that way. And I think it also captures both the advantages of investing in large, mid and small, as well as, because in India, we'll see small companies moving to mid to large. So, you capture that sort of a long-term opportunity, but since you are managing in a mix of asset classes, your risk slightly goes down versus when you invest in a single mid-cap or a small cap or a large cap fund.
Okay. So, as a fund manager, what is your long-term vision with multi-cap, and how do you plan to enhance the performance of it and sustain the entire market? I
think we will stick to our basics. I talked in detail about the strategies we follow, the 3 or 4 pillar strategy we have. And I think we continue to be bottoms up. We will look at sectors or companies with a longer growth potential, which have good earnings and cash flow momentum. Also, we'll look at companies who will migrate, as I talked about small to mid, who have that capability, who have that talent to migrate, or management execution to migrate from a small to mid to a large cap company. So that's how, over time, over 5 to 7 years, wealth is made in the fund and for unit holders as well. And we will be sort of watchful of the trends in the market. We continue to be watchful of the trends in the market. How to sort of manage between sector allocation continues to be again a focus. And I think that's this basic mantra behind what we have done over the last 3 years. We'll continue to sort of drive that and hope to sort of give unit holders a very, very good return.
So Shikhar, there are new investors that are entering the market eventually, and what would be your advice in terms of should they have a multi-cap as one of the funds in their portfolio, or how do you plan to allocate in what kind of sense?
Okay, for any new investors or in fact the existing investors also, see each category fund comes with a different flavor, right? And it's on your risk appetite. If you are looking for a long term, but you can't take market being very volatile and you become very restless and sleepless if there's a lot of volatility in the market, then of course funds like Balance Advantage Fund or a large cap fund will do well for you. If you are very risk oriented, like quite young blood, you're ready to take downside for a couple of years, then go for like small cap or mid cap, which either gives you very good returns but are slightly cyclical that way. But you are a very balanced person, you want best of all categories kind of, multi cap and a flexi cap are the categories ones which you should look at. So that's how I'll tell people that come with the risk appetite, know your risk. It's not important to have like I'm young, I will have a high risk. It's not true. Investment is all about how long you're investing and how much can you take it. So if your portfolio is showing negative for continuously a year and you're able to take it thinking that I know it's for a long term and I did not worry about it, then please you can look at a small cap, a mid cap, and definitely multi cap gives all flavor to it. But otherwise, if you want a more balanced approach, come to multi-cap kind of a fund. You have all three in that. So you don't feel miss out when small caps are doing very well, and you don't get really worried when they are underperforming the market kind of.
So there are a lot of investors in the market. Anything that you would conclude in terms of multi-caps? Because people have been following your fund philosophy and they have been following you truly so.
I think from a multi-cap perspective, as I'll underline my thoughts again, I think you get the benefits of all the three classes at one fund. One has to be invested in a long term to make wealth. It's not for someone who's there for the shorter term. I think the time horizon is obviously 3 to 5 years or much more if one is willing to be invested. One should also be mindful of market trends or market cycles, because cycles come and go. We have had a very good bull run over the last couple of years. There may be certain phases the market is not supportive in terms of maybe valuations, flows, etc., earnings, etc. So I think the key is to basically look at it from a longer term perspective and not from a shorter term perspective, because anyways you make wealth in a long term investment thesis. And we'll continue our bottom up approach, our focus on cash flows and earnings and management execution to sort of deliver that kind of returns what we have delivered in the past. And hopefully the journey continues, the good journey continues.
Shikha, any words on the multi-cap itself for the people?
Completely agree with what Hitesh said. One should be mindful of market because yes, it's volatile right now, and we have seen good phase from last 2.5. I think post COVID we have seen very good phase. There are a lot of new investors from that time, from COVID time. So please think from a market from a long term perspective. Don't be scared of the short term volatility. It's more about being opportunity when this kind of volatility come in market, and sail through it with patience. That what you have invested, if they are good quality stocks, good quality funds, they will sail through this phase of the market as well. So be mindful of the market and invest for a long term.
So thank you Hitesh, thank you Shikha for an insightful session on Axis Multicap. Hope we do such kind of events and we bring back Hitesh and Shikha both together for the panel again for an interesting webinar altogether. So all the investors that have been tuned in today, thank you for tuning in to our own YouTube channel. Please like, share and subscribe this video. For investing in Axis Multicap Fund, log on to our channel www.axismf.com, or you can download the app from Play Store and App Store. Till then, your host Aditya will take a goodbye from you. See you on the next webinar. See you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.